It is a pleasure to meet you at this opportunity to give you another related brief just next to the previous message, brief message, which relates to the industry's development. The previous message referred to or gave brief on economy structure enhancement. This brief message, it does brief on industry's development. And let me bring an example that's made on reality. There is a company, I think everybody knows around the country, Safeway. It's a grocery store, well known, Safeway Incorporated. In late 2008, December 2008, I noticed I have my own company, Atif Entertainment, and I have a part-time work with the Safeway. At that time, late 2008, December 2008, I noticed limitations in more than 4 stores, about 4 stores located in Fairfax County and Alexandria. They have similar limitations, I won't say problems, but it does, the continuation of the limitation, it does lead to huge loss. It does relate to the inventory, the fewer things related to the receiving and display of the merchandise. I made a note to the company, and I briefed I made it in brief details, the nature of the problem and what needs to get done, and I made a simple estimation that if they give it their attention, at least fewer billions of dollars will be saved, or if it does not get their attention, the continuation of the loss, it gets much more than $1 billion in a very limited period of time. Plus, there are a number of things: loss revenues, loss of consumers, and loss of merchandise itself, a number of things. And it does reflect to the process of any business growth cycle: development, innovation, performance, and the adjustment. It keeps the company on a continuous debt. At that time, Safeway debt was $7 billion, $7.2 or $7.4 billion. It's December 2008. What happened? There was an immediate response came through the entire Safeway stores. They brought specific machines for inventory, and it did work about a month or about less than 2 months. And what happened, Safeway company received the debt dropped from $7.4 billion to $5.2 billion, which means more than $2 billion reflection on the financial status of the company in 2 months period. It was very important areas. Any company, it doesn't matter, grocery stores industry or department stores industry, it's very important. And there is other steps, about 6 steps. If any company in grocery stores industry, at least not less than $8 billion increase every 6 months, or possible every minimum every year, and not less than $15 billion for the department stores if they follow those 6 steps. And that is the business. What happened, let's get back to the point, it was a total of $4 billion. $2 billion was an increase on revenues, which led to a drop on the debt of the company, possibility more than $2 billion. But that's just what came on the record. I have huge readings on almost the entire industries, main and derivatives, and it was part of my record to get through those industries, and it did include the grocery store industry, which includes the Safeway, and that's why I noticed it in details. After 2 months, 2009 February, the Safeway revenues made certain level of growth, but the debt dropped from 7.4 to 5.2, if I'm not correct, if I'm correct, or 5.4. It's about $2 billion growth, or possible more. And another $2 billion loss if the company continued without giving attention to the limitation. They could have more than $2 billion loss, but within a month period, $2 billion, that's the minimum loss for the Safeway if they do not give it their attention. And it did happen, and it did find their immediate attention. And everybody remembers, anybody worked or still work with the Safeway, they remember there is a certain boxes moved by the employees, has the light blue color on it. They walk through the entire store to get the inventories, scan the items, and it did refer to or led to the growth. From my side, this type of effort should be encouraged, should find immediate courage and appreciation, but until this moment I didn't get any letter from the Mr. Stephen Bayer, the CEO of the company and the chairman of the board. Not quite sure why, but it is a good lesson to learn to the entire CEOs in the similar industry or in other industries, and how to keep their business growth and find their limitations. To my knowledge, from the best CEOs in telecommunications industry, World.com suffered, or he's serving 25 years in jail. He's from the best CEOs ever, and from those who established or built the telecommunications industry in the United States and around the world. And he reached a certain level, pardon me, certain level in year 2000 to acquire another company, but instead of courage, what happened, they blocked their purchase plan. European Union and United States Justice Department, and from this point, Department of Justice, they need economists there. Their authorities should be transferred to Treasury Department, because there is a certain level of understanding to merger and acquisition. Companies, they have the ability to merge or to acquire other companies. If it does lead to monopoly, there is several ways to keep their growth forward and to respond to or to prevent the monopoly. But at that time, in year 2000, they blocked the purchase of the company. And what happened, I mentioned, he led the company for huge growth from early 80s to beginning of year 2000. And what happened, because of mistakes from the lower level of the management, and the accountant, he's serving 25 years in jail. He's supposed to be from the best to be awarded, but that's how it works, and I think that's a very, very important limitation on what concern merger and acquisition. I think I noticed these days there is a transaction made, but that was a big, I would say a mistake, but there are several ways to manage the situation, to keep the company on forward growth, and avoid the monopoly. But what happened, it did reflect negative impacts on the company, and I think the company charged for, I'm not quite sure what the situation is, but it was mistakes of lower management of the company, not the highest level, but they get blamed for not following their lower management limitations or mistakes, and the accountants and fix it. And there is another blame on Justice Department, on what concern how to manage the merger and acquisition transactions. It's a lesson to the entire CEOs to become sure to encourage their growth, to stop the limitations, to send any kind of appreciation to employees to keep their growth forward, not to send stress. In the situation I'm talking about, Safeway, that's a different situation. But if effort to secure $4 billion, $2 billion gross and $2 billion loss return any kind of stress or discourage, that put too many questions on what is happening, and it does mean the highest level, Mr. CEO, Mr. Stephen Bayer, and the board members not aware of the situation. But when it comes to the annual report, the financial annual report, they will get with huge surprises. But sooner or later, they will, and I'm still waiting the not even appreciation. It's very, but it's a lesson, and and I can refer to 6 steps still available to any company. It leads to not less than $80 billion minimum a year, or in 6 months, $15 billion to department stores and a number of other industries. But there is a similarities between grocery stores and department stores. That is, I would say, basic lessons to federal government, financial authorities who are in the Congress, financial authorities in Congress and federal government, on Treasury Department, on specific Internal Revenue Services, IRS, and other related areas, and the Federal Reserve districts, on how to encourage growth through the entire industries, main and derivative, and the how to fix the limitations. And as I mentioned, including the Safeway, they have a number of, just an example, Safeway and other companies, they have their growth level cycle. Part of them expect more steps forward, but for certain reasons their growth remains without getting through forward steps, because of the finance possible, because of the other things. It does apply to a number of other industries. It does relate to the development, innovation, and the performance and adjustment, or adjustment and performance. Companies, they need to have to increase the line of business, but they can't for certain reasons. They could, and it does lead to huge savings on the federal budget. There are a number of lessons to be learned. anytime, any moment. His Honor, the President of the United States, he experienced huge growth of debt. It's about $8 trillion since 2009 to present moment. And debt, national debt interest is running very fast with the growth of debt. And His Honor, the Chairman of the Federal Reserve, Ben Bernanke, since his arrival to present moment, United States national debt increased $14 trillion. With my full respect to His Honor, to the Federal Reserve districts, it could be prevented. United States could have no debt at all, and it could get cleared in 24 hours. He needs just to focus. And I think I have on the if you visit the latest edition, there is an interview on opinion subject, and the main interview. You can find fewer related questions and answers. Much of things needs to get done. Doesn't take that much time. It leads to huge growth, a total clearance of the entire debt and federal budget deficits. To His Honor, the President of the United States, to the Congress, Senators, and House Representatives. They need industrial development division to manage the situation. And any kind of effort, I think the latest edition is getting forward worldwide. Business, it does cover entire world countries and growth, and it's an entertainment similar to any television, has varieties of news, but it does brings growth according to each environment availabilities, or countries availabilities, or administrative divisions availabilities, or businesses availabilities. As I mentioned, the national debt could get cleared in 24 hours. $26 trillion growth, and this kind of effort needs the immediate attention of the President, National Economic Council, their officials, financial authorities, Treasury Department, Federal Reserve districts. They could have seminars, could have meeting, they could have a contract at least to get this good news instead of cycle of growth of debt. Everybody becomes much happier when it does get cleared. If it does concern the United States or Europe or Asia or a number of I noticed the external debt of the country is huge. Luxembourg has huge debt. It could get cleared in fewer days. Contract and contracting on advanced economies, it brings result very fast. And another number of countries. Third world countries, they have a very reversible situation. It does lead to huge negative impacts on their growth because of number of things. And let me get back, this kind of effort and list of solutions needs the immediate attention of the highest level decision-making process, the presidency, Congress, with courage. When this courage comes, it means there is a real problem sooner or later. It does bring a number of things, but it does need their immediate attention, because accumulation of debt leads to more cuts. More cuts, it leads to a number of limitations. There are specific areas they need an increase of their funds to follow the latest the news. And let me just mention example, IRS, Federal Communication Commission. There are huge limitations there. Law enforcement, they need to increase their funds to keep things, to keep businesses growing as supposed to. When businesses work in a comfortable environment, their growth keeps growing. When politicians find the way to businesses, it doesn't work as supposed to. In other words, businesses works much better, give huge support forms of growth to geographical areas, cities, states, and entire country. And I think that is the final objective to any decision-making process. It is a pleasure just to mention the industry's development, the example from the grocery industry, and the importance. It is important to the CEOs to know what's happening on their management lease level and other areas. Until this moment, an effort of getting $4 billion to a company, and it did keep the company away from the limitations. If the limitations continued not corrected, it could lead to much of, I'm very sure Sears suffered either similar situation or because the loss is huge, and it does lead to cuts on their sales and their other areas. I don't have to get in details, but it's a good example to mention. And sooner or later, much of effort it gets through the other main and derivative industries, more than 226 industries, and with an extra effort on the financial structure of the economy. That was a message of previous brief report. Huge growth takes places. Let me just refer to the resources allocation, resources management, financial management, and the investment management. And it is important, another one more time, to refer for the second time, to refer to the city group and what they mentioned about they have huge deposit base, and but plagued by high costs. This is a very important area. It does refer to limitations on the financial authorities part and the businesses part, but businesses they get forward the entire financial industry if fewer things becomes available from the financial authorities, Federal Reserve districts, on a specific. That's an indirect message, or a direct message to the Federal Reserve districts and Treasury Department. Not supposed to happen. I think factors of production needs to be reviewed. Labor, land, organization, and capital structure. They need to get to give more attention to the factors of production, to increase the growth. And I think I refer to it later, but it's very important to. It came on the news yesterday. The high cost it led Citigroup to cut their employment, and I mentioned they're supposed to have at least the entire financial institutions between 4 to 6 new positions, and it is referred to the Safeway. Safeway, they have financial institutions. They could have the similar situation, but the solution is not available yet. And as I mentioned, it's available upon request to the financial authorities, Treasury Department, Federal Reserve districts, and the financial authorities in Senate and House of Representatives. And the President of the United States, he received a letter. It did refer to those areas, and Congress, Senate, banking, Housing and Urban Affairs Committee, and Financial Services on House of Representatives Committee, they received a letter. And it's just another reminder. Growth takes less than 24 hours. The availabilities on resources unlimited. It needs just more attention, extra effort on management, an extra effort on the financial management, and extra effort on investment management to change the present status of the investment position from negative to huge surplus. Thank you very much. And the courage is very important. Stress sends a very strange message. Why growth brings message of stress. That's a very it's questioning. It's suppose everybody to come happy and encourage any signs of growth and effort, to encourage the entire employees and there are a number of things to connect employees with their work, but not at this moment. It does bring the union of the businesses attention. It does connect them to businesses, but this is not the moment to talk about it. But there are a number of things to get the business forward with, if their courage continues. But if they send message of stress, it does break through the entire employees, and it does lead to a negative impact. Instead of, in the Safeway example, $4 billion rescued, $2 billion loss, and $2 billion gross on the revenues. And I refer to the period. It was December 2008 until February 2009, and the record published and available on the latest edition. But in a very brief, it does bring just the readings on the companies' revenues and other briefs, the financial status. Thank you very much, and I hope message of courage to take places, and those behind the stress find the highest level attention. Because I mentioned one of the best CEOs in telecommunication industry is serving 25 years in jail instead of awards, instead of it's a genius that found black for certain limitations on what concern mergers and acquisitions for a good contract. At that time they described him by monopolist, and he could control the entire telecommunications industry between Europe and well, it wasn't. It's a huge growth, but it could be much better instead of that, which led to an indirect collapse. But they got back, and but at the end, from the best quality of CEOs serving 25 years in jail, and that's mistakes for the least level of the management of the companies and accounting and those kind of things. And it's a very important message to the entire CEOs to become cautious and follow their growth and how it happens and where their limitations. It is important to send their courage instead of message of stress. Thank you very much, and happy New Year.